I just want to point out some things that you guys are missing completely. True darknets are not nets at all. Tor and protocols like it are an anonymous and plausible deniability source. Actual darknets are kept well and truly hidden, and cannot be found by any means available to the average channer. Trust me. Just one example. Out of maybe 4 or 5 I have personal experience with, to illustrate what it takes. Do take special note that this involves a great deal of luck. A friend of mine works at a small car insurance broker's office and asks me to fix a problem with his computer, not recognizing the office scanner on the network. This is not related, just how I ended up there. I brought my laptop and noticed a WEP wireless net with high signal strength. Out of curiosity, I turn on a sniffer to pick out the password while I work on the scanner. A few hours later, I'm leaving when I remember the sniffer. Got the pass, connected, and poked around. So, it's a basic home network, one system online with internet access. No firewall. Apparently, no antivirus. For the hell of it, I drop in a back door before I leave. You never know what goodies you can run across. Well, I get home and really start digging through this computer. It's just your average home computer. Most interesting stuff are some tax returns. There's a couple of text files that have what appear to be passwords, random characters, and a couple of names. Not much interesting, so I put my worm on it and leave it be for future use. Maybe. Weeks later, I'm arranging some proxies for a few of my bots, when I realize that there are 4 new bots I hadn't set up myself. What I figured later is that the owner of the WEP machine, my friend's boss, had taken a file from it on a floppy, which my worm happily infected, which then spread to a few more machines he used. This is where the interesting stuff begins. 2 of those machines had internet access, of course, but they had apparently never been used to actually access the internet. They both ran Windows 98 completely unpatched. They apparently had internet access only because they were physically networked with other machines that were used for internet access. Each of these machines had about 3 terabytes of storage. Most appeared empty, but was actually packed near full of encrypted bytes. The stuff was easily viewable, included huge amounts of personal information, including SSNs and tax IDs, names, addresses, lists of family and friends, sometimes pets, sometimes a lot of details such as vehicle, clothing, height, weight, and recent medical issues. Huge amounts of information. Not every listing had all of it, some were just a name. What they all had were dates. Couldn't make much sense of that. What I could make sense of were the bank accounts. Thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of account numbers, institutions, and safety deposit boxes. All over the world. South Africa, Russia, Brazil, everywhere. Nothing but the basic identifying information and another date. No note of what they might be. As I was picking through one of these 2 machines, I noticed a file being written. I figured someone was using the computer at that moment, but the only command events were coming from my worm. Nobody was using a mouse or keyboard. So then, I figured it was an automated system process. Watched what it was doing for a minute. Then I realized the computer was communicating on another network that wasn't a protocol I recognized. Because I knew when it started writing and when it stopped, I was able to transcribe the entire file, which was about 78 megs. I assumed it was one file, and not a chunk of something else, and I was right. It was still encrypted, but it turned out to be fairly simple. Since it was one file, I had a few educated guesses about what a file that size was, and my first was right. It was a movie, MPEG format. The title was just a random string, The video itself was an overhead view of 3 men sitting at a table. In the entire 15 minutes of the video, only one spoke. Sounded like gibberish. I figured it was code or he was nuts. He said things like, "Broken banana stung red boot." He would pause, then say another strange sentence. He kept going for about 10 minutes. The other 2 just watched him. One was drinking what I assume was coffee. Finally, he leaned back and asked if they would leave his daughter alone. The guy drinking the coffee just shook his head quickly. The talker started crying. Really crying. Hard. He leaned forward again and said another nonsense sentence, and the video ended. Timestamp was about 20 minutes before the video was uploaded to the machine I got it from. I had a really weird feeling about it, but my best guess at the time was it was some kind of clip from a movie I hadn't seen. And what I saw was a streaming broadcast, the timestamp on the file just being the time it was being sent. A couple weeks later, I went poking through those 2 computers again, and came across another recognizable file. This time, because it had the same header as the one I had already decrypted. It had actually been stored 4 hours after the first one. In it, the man that had spoken in the first one was crying like a baby as he fucked what appeared to be the corpse of a young girl, with her throat cut and blood all over the table that the 3 men had been sitting at in the first video. The other 2 men were still in the room, standing on either side of the room watching, smoking cigarettes. I didn't finish watching it. Only got about a minute or so in before it sank in what I was seeing. I've seen a lot in my time. This was not a movie. I cleaned my traces from those systems and haven't looked back. What I'm still finding hard to believe is that, from the computer I had originally hacked, these other systems got infected by a floppy. As near as I can tell, the 2 storage computers were on opposite sides of the globe. One in LA, one in Beijing. The WEP computer I'd found was in Dallas, and 2 of the other infected computers were in Winnipeg. As far as I know, my friend's boss had not left the country. His brother-in-law had been visiting at the time, though. Honestly, I even tell myself to this day that it really was some sort of crazy movie, even though I think I've seen enough of reality to know the difference. I can't help wondering if the girl was the guy's daughter, or somebody else's daughter. It fucking gnaws at me, wanting to know more. But you know what? I get this crawling, gibbering fear in my stomach that I really couldn't handle knowing the truth.